The stars stretched endlessly before the viewing window of the human ship Horizon's Promise. Captain Hannah stood with her arms crossed, watching the vast emptiness of space with practiced calm. 3 months into their deep space exploration mission, her crew had finally detected something remarkable. They were not alone in the universe. The signal had come 2 days ago. A series of complex mathematical patterns that could only mean one thing: intelligent life. The communication team worked around the clock to decode the message. When they finally succeeded, the words were simple but carried enormous weight. Unknown vessel, you have entered protected space. Maintain position and await escort. Hannah had immediately contacted Earth. The response took hours due to the distance, but when it came, the orders were clear. Wait, comply, make no aggressive moves. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries, and now that it was here, caution was paramount. Ambassador Taesung arrived on the bridge wearing his formal diplomatic attire. He was a man in his 50s with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. For 20 years, he had negotiated treaties between nations on Earth. Now he would negotiate for the entire human species. Any sign of them yet? He asked, moving to stand beside Hannah. Sensors picked up multiple ships approaching from 3 directions, she replied. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Taesung nodded slowly. How is the crew handling this? Nervous, excited, some are scared, Hannah admitted. I've kept them busy with standard protocols. It helps to have something to do. Wise, Taesung said. Fear comes from uncertainty. We give them tasks, we give them purpose. The wait felt eternal, though it was less than the predicted time. When the alien ships finally appeared, they took everyone's breath away. 3 massive vessels materialized from faster-than-light travel, their hulls shimmering with energy fields that human technology couldn't replicate. They were elegant and intimidating at once, clearly designed by minds that understood physics in ways humanity was still learning. A new message arrived, this time with a visual component. The screen flickered to life, showing a being unlike anything humans had imagined. Its body seemed to be made of living crystal, refracting light in rainbow patterns. When it spoke, the translation software rendered its words in perfect English. Unknown species. You will follow our ships to Nexus Prime. Any deviation from the prescribed course will be interpreted as hostile intent. Acknowledge. Hannah looked at Taesung, who gave a slight nod. She activated the communication channel. This is Captain Hannah of the human vessel Horizon's Promise. We acknowledge your instructions and will comply. We come in peace and seek dialogue. There was a pause. Acknowledged. Follow. The 3 alien ships took positions around the Horizon's Promise, creating an escort formation that was clearly also a containment strategy. If the humans tried to run or attack, they would be surrounded. Hannah engaged the engines and matched the course the aliens transmitted to her. Navigation systems. The journey to Nexus Prime took 6 days. During that time, Ambassador Taesung prepared. He studied every piece of data the sensors collected about the alien ships. He reviewed Earth's entire diplomatic history, looking for principles that might apply to interstellar relations. He meditated, knowing that the coming negotiations would test every skill he possessed. His assistant, Jiwoo, was a young diplomat with brilliant analytical skills. She had degrees in cultural anthropology and linguistics, and she spent the journey building psychological profiles based on the limited interactions they'd had. They're cautious, she told Taesung one evening in his quarters. Every communication has been formal, minimal. They reveal nothing about themselves except what's necessary. What does that tell you? Taesung asked. Will considered. Either they're naturally reserved or they don't trust us yet. Probably both. Good, remember that observation? Trust must be earned. When they finally arrived at Nexus Prime, the sight was overwhelming. The planet was surrounded by orbital stations so numerous they formed rings of artificial habitats. Ships of countless designs filled the space lanes. And the planet itself glowed with cities that covered entire continents. The Horizon's Promise was guided to a docking facility that dwarfed the largest space stations Earth had ever built. As the ship settled into its assigned berth, Taesung gathered his team. Besides Jiwoo, he had brought Dae Hyan, the head of security, and Yuna, a xenobiologist who might help them understand alien psychology. Remember, Taesung said, we represent all of humanity. Every word, every gesture will be analyzed. Be respectful, be observant, and above all, be honest. We have nothing to gain from deception and everything to lose. They were met at the airlock by a delegation of aliens. The crystalline being from the communications stood at the center, flanked by 4 others of different species. One looked insectoid with multiple limbs. Another had tentacles instead of arms. A third seemed to be composed of flowing liquid held in a containment suit. The fourth was roughly humanoid, but with scaled skin and eyes that glowed faintly. The crystal being spoke. I am High Chancellor Vrath of the Galactic Confederation. You are the first of your species to reach our borders. This is unprecedented. Taesung bowed respectfully, a gesture he hoped would be understood as non-threatening. I am Ambassador Taesung of Earth and Humanity. We are honored by this meeting. We come seeking knowledge and friendship. Knowledge and friendship, Vrath repeated, his crystalline structure refracting light in what might have been amusement or skepticism. Noble words. We shall see if your species lives by them. Come, the Confederation Council awaits. They were led through corridors that defied human architectural understanding. Gravity seemed to shift based on need. Walls displayed information in languages humans couldn't read. Beings of dozens of different species moved past them, some stopping to stare at the humans with various expressions that were impossible to interpret. The council chamber was enormous. A spherical room with seating arranged in concentric rings. Hundreds of beings filled the space, representing species from across the galaxy. At the center floated a platform where Vrath took his position. Taesung and his team were directed to a smaller platform that rose from the floor. Silence fell. Every eye, visual sensor, and perception organ focused on the humans. Vrath's voice resonated through the chamber. Humans of Earth, your species has been observed from a distance for many of your generations. We have watched you grow from primitive tribes to a spacefaring civilization. We have seen your wars, your violence, your conflicts. We have also seen your art, your compassion, your determination to survive and improve. He paused, and Taesung felt the weight of judgment in that silence. The Galactic Confederation maintains peace among 47 species. For 2,000 years we have prevented war and fostered cooperation. But we do not accept new members easily. Your species must prove that you are ready to join civilized society. We understand, Taesung said calmly. What must we do? Vrath gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing 2 alien species facing each other across a star system. For 300 years, the Kelth and the Norvani have been locked in dispute over this system. Countless mediators have tried and failed to resolve their conflict. This is your test. Solve what we could not. Show us that humanity deserves a place among the stars. The challenge hung in the air like a death sentence. Solve a 3-century-old conflict that had stumped the galaxy's best diplomats. Taesung met Vrath's crystalline gaze and smiled slightly. We accept your challenge. The quarters assigned to the human delegation were comfortable but clearly designed for observation. Dae Hyan had already found 3 surveillance devices hidden in the walls. He left them in place. They had nothing to hide, and removing them might be seen as suspicious. Ambassador Taesung sat in the main meeting room with his team, holographic displays floating before them. The data on the Kelth-Norvani conflict was extensive. 3 centuries of failed negotiations, territorial disputes, and escalating tensions that had nearly erupted into war multiple times. This is insane, Yuna said, scrolling through the documents. They want us to solve this in what? A few weeks? They've been trying for 300 years. That's exactly the point, Wu replied. They expect us to fail. This isn't really a test. It's a way to reject us while appearing fair. Taesung said nothing. He was reading the earliest records of the dispute when the conflict first began. Something didn't fit. The initial disagreement seemed minor, almost trivial. How had it escalated so dramatically? Tell me about the Kelth, he said, to pull up biological and cultural data. They're an old species, very traditional. They value heritage and ancestry above almost everything. Their society is organized around family lineages that go back thousands of years. And the Norvani? Younger species, relatively speaking. They've only been spacefaring for about 800 years. They're explorers and pioneers. Their culture celebrates discovery and expansion into new territories. Taesung leaned back in his chair. Show me the disputed system. The hologram changed, displaying a star system with 7 planets. One of them, the fourth from the sun, glowed with highlighting. It was a beautiful world with blue oceans and green continents. This is the prize, Daehyun said. Rich in rare minerals, perfect for colonization. Both species claim it. Why? Taesung asked. The question hung in the air. Jiwoo frowned. What do you mean? Why do they claim it? What's their specific justification? Jiwoo searched through the files. The Kelth say they discovered it first 2,000 years ago. They have ancient records of their ancestors visiting the system. But they didn't colonize it? No, they say it wasn't necessary at the time. They were expanding in different directions. And the Norvani? They arrived 300 years ago and found it uninhabited. According to their laws, uninhabited worlds are free for settlement. They began establishing colonies. Taesung stood and walked to the hologram, studying the planet closely. The Kelth claim it because their ancestors were there first. The Norvani claim it because they were the first to actually settle it. Right, Yuna said. And that's where all the mediators got stuck. Who has the stronger claim? Ancient discovery or actual settlement? Neither, Taesung said quietly. That's the wrong question. Over the next week, Taesung requested meetings with both Kelth and Norvani representatives. The Confederation agreed but insisted on monitoring the discussions. Taesung didn't object. He wanted them to watch. The Kelth representative was named Kethras. He was an imposing figure with fur-like skin in dark green colors and eyes that held ancient wisdom. When he entered the meeting room, he moved with dignity and barely concealed hostility toward the humans. You are the new species that presumes to solve our problem, Kethras said, his tone making clear what he thought of that presumption. I presume nothing, Taesung replied calmly. I come to understand. Tell me about your ancestors who first saw this world. Kethras seemed taken aback by the question. What? Your ancestors? The ones who discovered the system 2,000 years ago. Tell me about them. What was their journey like? What did they think when they first saw that planet? For a long moment, Kethras stared at the human ambassador. Then slowly he began to speak. The story poured out ancient history that had been passed down through countless generations. The great explorer ship seeking new stars. The joy of discovery. The sacred obligation to remember and honor the paths the ancestors walked. The world was beautiful, Kethras said, his voice thick with emotion. They named it Kelthara, gift of the stars in our language. They performed the ritual of recognition there, marking it as a place touched by our people. For us, that made it sacred ground. Taesung listened intently. When Kethras finished, the ambassador asked, And this ritual of recognition? What does it mean? It means the world belongs to our ancestors. To us forever. Taesung nodded slowly. Thank you for sharing this with me. It helps me understand. The meeting with the Norvani representative, Narvel, went differently but revealed just as much. Narvel was energetic and impatient, with smooth blue skin and multiple eyes that blinked independently. We found it empty, Narvel said immediately. No colonies, no settlements, nothing? According to every law of space exploration, it was ours to claim. Tell me about your first colony there, Taesung said. Narvel blinked in surprise. What about it? What was it like? Who were the pioneers? Narvel's demeanor shifted. He began describing the brave settlers who risked everything to build a new home on an unknown world. The challenges they faced, the communities they built, the children who were born there, the first generation to call Kelthara home. Over 6 million Norvani live there now, Narvel said with pride. 300 years of work. Buildings, farms, cities. We've poured our lives into that world. It's ours because we made it ours. After both meetings, Taesung gathered his team again. I think I understand now, he said. The Confederation has been asking the wrong question. They've been trying to determine who has the legal right to the planet. But this isn't about law. Then what is it about? Yuna asked. For the Kelth, it's about honoring their ancestors and maintaining sacred connections. For the Norvani, it's about the right to build a future. They're not actually fighting over the same thing. Iwu's eyes widened. They're using the same words but meaning completely different things. Exactly, Taesung said. When the Kelth say the world belongs to them, they mean spiritually and historically. When the Norvani say it belongs to them, they mean practically and presently. No mediator can decide between those claims because they're not competing claims. They're different kinds of claims. So what do we do? Daehyun asked. Taesung smiled. We give them both what they want. The proposal took 3 days to draft. Taesung worked with Jiwoo to craft language that would resonate with both species. When it was ready, he requested a formal mediation session with both parties present. The meeting room was tense. Kethras and Narvel sat on opposite sides, refusing to even look at each other. Taesung stood at the head of the table with his proposal displayed on screens around the room. I have studied your conflict, he began, and I believe I understand why it has not been resolved. You are not fighting over the same thing, though you use the same words. The Kelth seek to honor and preserve the sacred connection their ancestors made with this world. The Norvani seek to build and maintain the homes they have created there. These are not contradictory goals. Both representatives started to object, but Taesung raised a hand. I propose joint stewardship. The Norvani continue to govern the settlements and manage daily affairs. But the Kelth are recognized as spiritual custodians. Certain sites where the ritual of recognition was performed become sacred preserves. Maintained by the Kelth, the planet's official name becomes Kelthor Norvan, acknowledging both peoples. Impossible, Kethras said immediately. Unacceptable, Narvel added. Why? Taesung asked simply. The Kelth gain recognition of their ancestral claim and the right to maintain sacred sites. The Norvani keep their homes and their government. What do you lose? Silence fell. Both representatives looked at the proposal, really looked at it. Perhaps for the first time considering that they might not have to lose for the other to win. On Earth, Taesung continued, we have many places that are sacred to multiple groups. We learned, painfully and over many centuries, that sacred space can be shared if we respect each other's beliefs. You don't have to give up your claims. You only have to recognize that different kinds of claims can coexist. Kethras spoke first. Our people could visit the sacred sites? Perform our rituals? Yes, the proposal includes protected zones specifically for that purpose. Narvel's eyes blinked rapidly. And our settlers remain? Our government continues? Yes, nothing about your daily lives changes, except that you share the world with Kelth pilgrims and sacred keepers. Both representatives looked at each other for the first time. Something passed between them, not agreement, not yet, but possibility. I must consult with my people, Kethras said slowly. As must I, Narvel added. As they left, Jiwoo leaned close to Taesung. Do you think they'll accept? I don't know, he admitted. But at least now they're asking the right questions. Daehyun couldn't sleep. Something about the entire situation felt wrong. He had served in Earth security forces for 15 years before joining the diplomatic corps, and his instincts were screaming that they were missing something important. At 3 a.m. by Earth time, he left his quarters and began walking the corridors of the station. Guards were posted at intervals, alien species he didn't recognize. They watched him but didn't interfere. He was allowed to move freely within the human delegation's sector. The observation annoyed him. They were being watched constantly, studied like specimens in a laboratory. What were the aliens really looking for? What was this test truly about? He found himself at a viewing port overlooking the vast cityscape of Nexus Prime, millions of lights stretched to the horizon. Billions of beings from dozens of species living together. It should have been inspiring. Instead, it made him uneasy. Beautiful, isn't it? Daehyun spun around, hand instinctively moving toward the weapon that wasn't there. Weapons had not been permitted. The speaker was one of the aliens from the council, the reptilian one with glowing eyes. Up close, the being was even more imposing, standing over 2 meters tall with scales that shimmered in the dim light. Counselor Prex, Daehyun said, recognizing the alien from the briefing files. I didn't hear you approach. My species evolved as hunters, Prex said, moving to stand beside him at the window. We learned to move silently. Old habits remain even after millennia of civilization. They stood in silence for a moment. Daehyun waited. In his experience, people who started conversations at odd hours usually wanted something. Your ambassador is doing something remarkable, Prex finally said. The Kelth and Norvani are actually talking to each other. In 300 years, no one has achieved that. He's good at his job, Daehyun replied carefully. Yes, but it's more than skill, isn't it? It's perspective. He sees the problem differently because humans think differently. Is that good or bad? Prex made a sound that might have been laughter. That is what we're all trying to decide. Some fear your species. Others are curious. A few are hopeful. But everyone is watching very carefully. Why? Daehyun asked bluntly. What do you really want from us? The alien was quiet for a long moment. I shouldn't tell you this. But I find I respect your directness and perhaps your people deserve to know the truth. He turned to face Daehyun fully. The Confederation has a problem. We have maintained peace for 2,000 years, but we have also become stagnant. We follow the same protocols, use the same methods, think the same thoughts we did centuries ago. When new challenges arise, we struggle because we have forgotten how to truly innovate. And you think humans can help with that? Some do. Others think you will destroy the order we have built. Your species is young, violent, unpredictable. You fight among yourselves even now. Why should we trust you? Daehyun considered his answer carefully. Because we know we're imperfect. We don't claim to have everything figured out. Maybe that makes us more willing to try new things. Prex made that laughing sound again. Perhaps. Or perhaps it makes you dangerous. He started to walk away, then paused. A word of advice, human. Not everyone wants your ambassador to succeed? Some have invested much in maintaining the current order. Watch carefully. Before Daehyun could respond, the alien disappeared into the shadows of the corridor. The next morning, Daehyun reported the conversation to Taesung. The ambassador listened without interruption, his expression thoughtful. So we're caught in someone else's political struggle, Juwoo said. Some want change, others want to keep things the same. It explains a lot, Yuna added. Why give us an impossible test? If we fail, it proves humans aren't ready and everything stays the same. If we succeed, it forces the Confederation to accept change. What do we do? Daehyun asked. What we've been doing, Taesung said calmly. We focus on solving the problem we were given. Whatever politics are happening above our heads, the Kelth and Norvani deserve a real solution. 2 days later, both species returned with their answers. The meeting room felt different this time. The hostility was gone, replaced by cautious hope mixed with lingering suspicion. Kethra spoke first. My people have discussed your proposal. We have concerns, but we are willing to consider it. We want assurances that our sacred sites will be protected and that we will have unrestricted access for our rituals. Narvel nodded. My people also have concerns. We worry about who decides what is sacred and what isn't. We can't have our entire planet covered in restricted zones. Fair points both, Taesung said. I propose a joint commission. 3 Kelth representatives, 3 Norvani representatives, and 1 neutral mediator from the Confederation. They survey the planet together, identify the sites where the ancient rituals were performed, and establish reasonable boundaries. No decisions are made unilaterally. They talked for hours, working through details. Jiwoo took notes, drafting language that both sides could accept. Slowly, painfully, an agreement took shape. By the end of the day, they had a preliminary treaty. It wasn't perfect, but both Kethras and Narvel signed it. For the first time in 300 years, the Kelth and Navani had found common ground. The news spread through Nexus Prime like wildfire. The impossible had happened. Humans, the newest species to reach the stars, had solved a problem that had stumped the galaxy's best mediators. That evening, Taesung received a message. High Chancellor Vrath requested a private meeting. No staff, no observers. Just the two of them. The meeting room was simple and small, nothing like the Grand Council chamber. Vrath's crystalline form seemed to pulse with different colors as he regarded the human ambassador. You succeeded, Vrath said without preamble. Against all expectations, you found a way. The solution was there all along, Taesung replied. People just needed to look at it differently. Yes, that is precisely what concerns some of us. Vrath moved closer, light refracting through his form. I must be honest with you, Ambassador. This test was designed to fail. Not because we are cruel, but because we are afraid. Taesung showed no surprise. Afraid of humans? Afraid of change? The Confederation has existed for 2,000 years in careful balance. Every species knows their place, their role. The protocols work because we all follow them. And then you arrive, thinking in ways we don't expect, solving problems with methods we never considered. And that frightens you? It should frighten me, Vrath corrected. But watching you work, seeing how you approach the Kelth and Norvani not as a legal problem but as a human one, I realize something. We have forgotten how to do that. We have become so focused on maintaining order that we have lost the ability to truly solve new problems. So what happens now? Taesung asked. Vrath's color shifted, a pattern that might have indicated deep thought or uncertainty. Now comes the real test. The Council must decide what to do with humanity. Some will argue that you have proven yourselves worthy of membership. Others will argue that you are too dangerous, too unpredictable. The debate will be fierce. And you? What will you argue? The High Chancellor was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, less formal, more personal. I have led the Confederation for 300 years. I have maintained peace, followed our laws, upheld our traditions. I thought that was enough. But in the past weeks, watching your species, I have seen something we have lost. The willingness to question, to adapt, to try approaches that might fail. He turned to face Taesung directly. The galaxy faces challenges we do not speak of openly. There are forces approaching from deep space that we do not understand. Our traditional methods have failed to even comprehend what we are facing. We need new thinking. We need what your species has. What are you saying? I'm saying that I intend to make a proposal tomorrow that will shock the Council. I'm saying that humanity may be exactly what the Confederation needs, even if we don't want to admit it. And I'm saying that you should prepare yourself, Ambassador. If the Council accepts my proposal, everything will change. Taesung studied the alien leader. What are you going to propose? Vrath's form shifted through a rainbow of colors. You'll see tomorrow. But know this, if you accept what I offer, there will be no going back. Humanity will be committed to the fate of the galaxy. As Taesung left the meeting, his mind raced. Whatever Vrath was planning, it was bigger than just membership in the Confederation. The High Chancellor had revealed their fear, their stagnation, and their need. He had shown vulnerability that no leader should show to a potential rival, unless he wasn't thinking of humanity as a rival at all. Taesung returned to his quarters and called his team together. Tomorrow, something significant happens. I don't know exactly what, but we need to be ready for anything. What did Vrath say? Jiwoo asked. That the galaxy needs us more than they want to admit? Taesung looked at each of them in turn. And that our answer tomorrow will determine humanity's future in the stars? The council chamber filled slowly. Representatives from all 47 member species took their seats in the concentric rings. The atmosphere was different from the first time Taesung had stood before them. Then he had been an unknown. Now, after the successful mediation, he was something else. Something that made many of them nervous. Ambassador Taesung stood on the central platform with his team behind him. Captain Hannah had joined them, along with Daehyun, Jiwoo, and Yuna. If this was to be humanity's moment, they would face it together. High Chancellor Vrath entered last, his crystalline form seeming brighter than usual. He took his position at the highest point in the chamber, where all could see him. Members of the Galactic Confederation, Vrath began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast space. We have witnessed something remarkable. The humans have accomplished what we could not. After 3 centuries of failed negotiations, the Kelth and Norvani have reached an agreement. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some sounded pleased, others skeptical. I have reviewed their methods, Vrath continued. The human ambassador did not rely on our established protocols. He did not search our legal databases for precedent. Instead, he approached the problem as if it were new, as if our centuries of accumulated wisdom did not exist. The murmurs grew louder, and now they sounded more hostile. Taesung remained still, his face calm. Beside him, he felt Daehyun tense. Some of you will say this is disrespectful, Vrath said. That a species so young should not ignore the knowledge of their elders? And you would be right, in most circumstances. He paused, and the chamber fell silent. But these are not most circumstances. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, visible to all. It showed a map of the galaxy with the Confederation's territory marked in blue. Beyond their borders, in the black of unexplored space, red markers appeared. For the past 50 years, Vrath said, our long-range sensors have detected anomalies in deep space. Ships disappearing, signals that cannot be explained by natural phenomena. And most disturbing, something moving toward our territory. Something vast. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Many representatives seemed to be hearing this for the first time. The Executive Council has kept this information restricted, Vrath continued. We believed we could understand and address this threat using our traditional methods. Our greatest scientists studied the data. Our best strategic minds developed responses. For 50 years we have tried? He paused. We have failed. We are no closer to understanding what approaches than we were half a century ago. Councillor Prex stood from his seat. High Chancellor, why was this information not shared with the full council? Because we hoped to resolve it before causing panic, Vrath replied. That was a mistake. The Executive Council has become too insular, too reliant on the same thinking that has guided us for millennia. We need new perspectives. The hologram changed, now showing footage of the human delegation working with the Kelth and Norvani. Taesung watched himself on the display, saw the moments when he had questioned basic assumptions and approached the problem from unexpected angles. Watch how they think, Vrath said. They do not follow our patterns. They ask questions we would never think to ask. They see connections we overlook because we are too familiar with our own systems. A voice called out from the upper rings. You cannot seriously be suggesting we rely on such a young species for our survival. I am suggesting, Vrath said, his form pulsing with intensity, that we have become old in more than years. We have become old in our thinking. The humans are young, yes. They are violent and chaotic and unpredictable. But they are also adaptive and innovative and willing to fail and try again. These are qualities we have lost. Another representative spoke up. They have not even been formally accepted into the Confederation. They are still on probation, so to speak. Which brings me to my proposal, Vrath said. He turned to face Taesung directly. Standard procedure would be to offer humanity basic membership after a probationary period of 20 years. During this time, they would have limited access to our technology and no voice in major decisions. Taesung nodded. This was what he had expected. It was how new species were always integrated. I reject standard procedure, Vrath announced. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Instead, I propose that humanity be offered immediate full membership with a seat on the Executive Council. The silence shattered. Hundreds of voices erupted at once. Representatives stood, gesturing wildly, their translators struggling to keep up with the flood of objections and arguments. Taesung felt his heart racing but kept his expression neutral. A seat on the Executive Council meant humanity would have a voice in major galactic decisions. It was unprecedented for such a young species. Vrath raised his crystalline appendages, calling for order. Slowly the chaos subsided. "This is madness," someone shouted. "They are too young, too inexperienced." "They are exactly what we need," Vrath countered. "Fresh eyes, new thinking." "Yes, they are inexperienced in galactic affairs. That is precisely the point. They are not bound by our conventions." Prex stood again. "High Chancellor, I understand your reasoning, but many here have valid concerns. The humans have proven themselves capable, but leadership is different from mediation. What if they make mistakes that endanger us all?" "Then they will make mistakes," Vrath said bluntly. Just as I have by keeping the approaching threat secret for 50 years. Perfection is not what I seek. I seek the ability to adapt, to think in new ways, to face new challenges without being paralyzed by old protocols. The debate raged for hours. Arguments for and against flew across the chamber. Some species saw opportunity. Others saw danger. A few remained silent, watching and calculating. Taesung noticed patterns in the opposition. The oldest species, those who had been in the Confederation the longest, were most resistant. The younger members seemed more open to the idea. It wasn't really about humanity at all. It was about change versus stability, new versus old. Finally, Vrath called for a preliminary vote. Not binding, but a measure of the Council's sentiment. The holographic display showed the results as they came in. It was close, frighteningly close. 47 votes, and it was splitting almost evenly. When the final count appeared, the chamber fell silent again. 24 in favor. 23 against. A majority, but barely. "The preliminary vote shows support," Vrath said. "But such a significant decision requires more than a simple majority. We will adjourn for 3 days. During this time, I encourage all of you to consider carefully. Speak with the humans. Learn about them. Then we will vote again, and this time the decision will be final." As the council dismissed, representatives began approaching the human delegation. Some were hostile, demanding explanations. Others were curious, asking questions about Earth and human culture. A few were openly supportive. Through it all, Taesung maintained his diplomatic composure, answering questions patiently and honestly. But inside, his mind was spinning. A seat on the Executive Council. He had come hoping for basic membership, perhaps in a few decades. Now he was being offered power and responsibility on a galactic scale. That evening, the human team gathered in their quarters. Captain Hannah was the first to speak. "This is insane. We're not ready for this kind of responsibility. Are we ready?" Jiwoo asked. "Or are we just afraid?" "Both," Daehyun said. "The question is whether being afraid is enough reason to say no." Yuna had been quiet, but now she spoke up. "I've been talking to some of the other species. The younger ones, mostly. They're excited about this. They see it as a chance to break the old patterns. But the older species are terrified. They've built their entire civilization on stability and predictability. And humans represent chaos," Hannah said. "We represent change," Taesung corrected. "There's a difference, is there?" Hannah challenged. "What if we accept and everything falls apart? What if we make wrong decisions and people die? That's not a diplomatic failure. That's real consequences." "True," Taesung acknowledged. "But what if we refuse and that thing in deep space arrives and they can't stop it because they're too stuck in their old ways?" "That's also real consequences." The room fell silent. The weight of the decision pressed down on all of them. "We need to contact Earth," Ziwu said. "This isn't a decision we can make alone." Taesung nodded. "Already done?" "But the message won't reach them for hours, and their reply will take just as long. We have time to think. Over the next 3 days, The human delegation became the center of attention on Nexus Prime. Representatives visited constantly. Some tried to intimidate them into refusing. Others tried to convince them to accept. A few simply wanted to understand what made humans so different. Su-Bin, another human diplomat who had been working on cultural exchanges, reported that the younger species were organizing their own discussions. They saw this as a pivotal moment, a chance to reshape the Confederation into something more dynamic. On the third day, Earth's response arrived. The message was from the Secretary-General of the United Nations, and it was surprisingly brief. "We trust your judgment, Ambassador Taesung. You are there. You understand the situation better than we do. Whatever you decide, humanity stands behind you." It was the answer Taesung needed. Not orders, but trust. The acceptance was met with mixed reactions. Half the chamber erupted in applause, a sound that varied wildly across species. Some clapped, others hummed, a few made clicking sounds with various appendages. The other half sat in stony silence, their disapproval clear. High Chancellor Vrath raised his crystalline appendages. "The decision is made. Humanity is now a full member of the Galactic Confederation with representation on the Executive Council. Ambassador Taesung will serve as their counselor until humanity sends a permanent representative." Taesung felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. This was real. There was no going back now. As the formal session ended, representatives began to disperse. Counselor Prex approached the human delegation, his reptilian features unreadable. "Congratulations, Counselor Taesung," he said. The title sounded strange. "You have been given a great honor and a great burden." "I understand," Taesung replied. "I wonder if you do," Prex said, not unkindly. "The Executive Council meets tomorrow to discuss the threat from deep space. You will be expected to contribute ideas to help solve a problem that has stumped us for 50 years. No pressure, of course." After he left, Captain Hannah turned to Taesung. "Are we really doing this? Making decisions about galactic threats when we barely understand galactic politics?" "We'll learn quickly," Taesung said. "We always do." That night, the human team gathered one last time before everything changed. They sat in their quarters, the weight of their new reality sinking in. "I've been thinking," Wu said, "about why they really chose us. It's not just about fresh thinking. I think they're desperate. Desperate people make risky decisions," Daehyun agreed. "Or brave ones," Yuna countered. "It takes courage to admit you need help, especially when you've been the ones in charge for so long." Subin, who had been quiet throughout the day, finally spoke. "What worries me is the division. Did you see the vote? Almost half the council didn't want this. We're walking into a situation where half our colleagues don't trust us." "Then we'll have to earn their trust," Taesung said. Starting tomorrow. The Executive Council meeting room was smaller than the Grand Chamber, but far more intimidating. Only 12 beings sat around the circular table. The leaders of the most influential species in the Confederation. And now, one human. High Chancellor Vrath presided from the head of the table. Around him sat representatives Taesung had been studying all night. Each one held enormous power and responsibility. "Welcome, Counselor Taesung," Vrath said. "This is your first Executive Council meeting. Traditionally, we would spend time on protocols and introductions. Today, we have no time for tradition. We must address the threat." The holographic display activated, showing the deep space readings. Strange energy signatures moving in patterns that defied known physics. And getting closer. An elderly alien with flowing tentacles spoke. "We have analyzed these readings for 50 years. Our best scientists cannot explain them. They do not match any natural phenomenon. They do not match any known technology. We are facing something completely unknown." Another counselor, one who had voted against humanity's inclusion, spoke coldly. "Perhaps our newest member has insights the rest of us lack?" The sarcasm was clear even through translation. Taesung studied the data carefully. "What have you tried so far?" "Everything," the tentacled alien said wearily. "Mathematical analysis, physical modeling, historical comparisons. We sent probe ships, but they disappeared the moment they entered the affected region. We have no data from inside the phenomenon. Have you tried asking what it wants? Taesung said. The room fell silent. Several counselors looked confused. Asking? One repeated, "It's not a being. It's a phenomenon." "You don't know that," Taesung said. "You've assumed it's either a natural occurrence or some kind of weapon. But what if it's neither? What if it's alive or intelligent or both?" "We sent standard communication signals," another counselor said. "No response." "What kind of signals?" "Mathematical sequences. Prime numbers. The universal language of science." Taesung leaned back in his chair. "On Earth, we used to think dolphins were not intelligent because they didn't respond to our attempts at communication. Then we realized we were asking the wrong questions in the wrong way. What if this thing doesn't think in mathematics? What if it communicates in ways you haven't considered?" Vroth's form pulsed with interest. "What do you suggest?" "I suggest we stop assuming we know what we're dealing with and start exploring all possibilities. Don't just send math. Send music, art, emotional patterns. Send chaos and order, patterns and randomness. See if anything gets a response." "That could take years," someone objected. "And continuing to do what hasn't worked will take longer," Taesung countered. "You've spent 50 years approaching this scientifically. Maybe it's time to try approaching it creatively." The debate that followed was intense. Some counselors thought Taesung's ideas were brilliant. Others thought they were foolish. But for the first time in decades, they were debating new approaches instead of refining old ones. By the end of the meeting, they had agreed to try Taesung's suggestion. Ships would be equipped with new communication arrays designed to send a wide variety of signals. Music from different species, visual art, even recordings of emotional expressions. As they left the meeting room, Prex walked beside Taesung. "You realize half the council thinks you're insane? And the other half thinks you might be right? That's more than most new ideas get." Over the following weeks, Taesung worked constantly. The Executive Council met daily as they coordinated the communication attempts with the unknown phenomenon. Humanity's perspective influenced more than just that project. The entire council began questioning old assumptions. Captain Hana and her crew were assigned to one of the communication ships. Yuna went with them as a scientific advisor. Dae-hyun remained on Nexus Prime, coordinating security as tensions grew between pro-change and anti-change factions. Ju-woo became invaluable as a liaison between Taesung and the various council members. Her ability to understand cultural nuances helped bridge gaps that had existed for centuries. Subin worked with the younger species, helping them organize and find their voice in council discussions. A movement was growing, one that pushed for more openness and innovation. Then, 6 weeks after the communication ships launched, they received a response. The Executive Council convened an emergency session. The holographic display showed the signal that had come back from deep space. It wasn't mathematical. It wasn't any language they could decode. It was sound and light and pattern, all woven together in ways that defied analysis but somehow felt meaningful. "What is it?" someone asked. "I think," Yuna's voice came through the communication channel from the Horizon's Promise, "it's a greeting." The realization rippled through the council. The unknown phenomenon wasn't a threat. It was a visitor. Something vast and incomprehensible but not hostile. It had been approaching for 50 years, trying to communicate, but unable to connect until humanity suggested trying different languages. "What do we do now?" Vroth asked. The work that followed was unlike anything the Confederation had attempted. Teams from multiple species worked together, combining their unique perspectives to decode the communication. Humans brought creativity and pattern recognition. The elder species brought vast knowledge and patience. The younger species brought enthusiasm and fresh approaches. Slowly, painfully, understanding emerged. The phenomenon was indeed alive, a form of intelligence so different from biological or technological life that the Confederation had never imagined it could exist. It traveled between galaxies, seeking other minds to communicate with. It had been drawn by the signals of civilization but couldn't understand the rigid, mathematical languages everyone kept using. 3 months after first contact, they achieved real communication. The entity expressed joy at finding minds that could understand it. It offered knowledge, perspectives from across the universe. In return, it wanted only to learn and to be known. The discovery changed everything. The Confederation realized how close they had come to disaster, not from invasion, but from their inability to recognize something different. The debate over humanity's place in the Council ended. Those who had opposed it now saw the value of diverse thinking. Taesung stood before the full council again, this time not as a supplicant but as a respected member. High Chancellor Vrath addressed the assembly. 6 months ago, humanity arrived at our borders. We gave them a test designed to fail, expecting them to prove they were not ready for galactic society. Instead, they showed us that we were not ready for them. They solved problems we could not. They opened our minds to possibilities we had forgotten. And now, they have helped us make contact with a form of intelligence we would have feared and fought if we had continued on our old path. He turned to Taesung. Counselor, humanity has fulfilled everything we could have hoped for and more. But I must ask, what does humanity want? You have given us so much. What do you seek in return? Taesung considered his answer carefully. We want to continue learning. We want to work alongside all of you, not to replace your wisdom, but to add to it. We want to help build a confederation that embraces both tradition and innovation, that honors what works while remaining open to what might work better.